Chapter 3 Returning Customer. The light through Dreiden's window cast a warm glow around the interior of his bedroom. He had awoken this morning from a wonderful dream about his mother. In the dream, she was having her usual morning tea. They talked about his work and the things he made and repaired. It had been many years since he had last seen her. She passed away peacefully some time ago. He missed her dearly, but she had lived a full life. Dreiden rose from his bed and began the process of getting ready for his day. He took a shower, brushed his teeth, and even combed through his beard. Standing in his bathroom, his brown eyes looked back at him in the mirror. As he inspected himself, he felt relieved that he was getting parts today for the SUSN 22's vocoder. He wanted to get her back up and running as quickly as possible so he could focus on his project. XRZ00 needed a new personality matrix, and this job would likely give him just enough to build one from parts. After he was done getting ready, he walked downstairs. His workshop was just the way he left it, clean and tidy. The safe where XRZ00 was stored was also untouched. Everything was as it should be. Hearing a knock at his door, he looked at the clock. His order had arrived just in time. He opened the door and greeted the courier. ASH13, though she preferred to be called Ashley, was a courier synthetic who dropped off parts to the mechanics in the district. She wasn't much for conversation, as she was an older model without a vocoder. She was one of the rare instances of a synthetic with retirement papers. She had been a factory worker owned by a large company, Vickers Synergy. When they had gone belly up, she was offered a severance package and paperwork saying she didn't have to work for anyone ever again. So she decided to make her own courier service in this district. As far as he knew, people actually liked Ashley. She never really complained about anything. They occasionally had conversations using his computer to translate her coded language, meaning she had to be plugged in. He didn't think today would be one of those days, and part of him was sad for it. He rather enjoyed the sparse conversations he did have with her. She waved and handed him the package, her bulky body moving with some effort. She had a round, disc-like head that sat horizontally on her shoulders. Her body was shaped like a cylinder, with her designation emblazoned on it. Her arms and legs had hydraulic components in them. All in all, a well-rounded model, just designed for factory work. There weren't many of her kind around anymore, since most of them were decommissioned and dismantled. "Hope you have a good day, Ashley," Dreiden said warmly. She squatted excitedly, gave him 2 thumbs up, waved again, and walked away. He assumed that meant she was having a great day. He called after her, "Let me know if you need any repairs." She responded by throwing another thumb up into the air. He closed the door with his foot as he walked back in with the package. It wasn't heavy, and inside was everything he needed to make a new vocoder for SUSN 22. Realizing he was still calling her by her designation, he decided to ask her what she preferred to be called the next time he saw her. After all, respecting a returning customer was of the utmost importance. He set to work as he contemplated his customer. He started by unpacking the contents and separating each part. It was always important to stay organized in the workspace, so he roughly arranged them in order of necessity. He idly wondered about his customer, the SUSN 22 with the brown bob cut. He hoped her owner was treating her all right, but he didn't expect it to be the greatest. Unwilling to think about what she might be enduring, it infuriated him that he was unable to do much other than repair her vocoder. There weren't any sort of synthetic social services. If a synthetic went to an abusive home, they were stuck there until the lineage died out, they were sold off, or dismantled. It seemed like a bleak way of existing. Dreiden found his thoughts left him feeling melancholic, and so he decided to focus on his work more. He was almost finished rebuilding the vocoder. He was currently affixing a component to the main body of it. Once that was done, he tested it to make sure it carried a charge from one end to the other. A small static-like noise emerged from the speaker, signaling that he was on the right track. Next, he would have to program her voice into the vocoder. It wouldn't be hard since she used the default Susan voice. He carefully plugged the vocoder into his computer and started the program upload. It would take until tomorrow morning before it would be done. He had plenty of time to work on the XRZ00 now. He was hoping a synthetic designed to help in the workshop would get the interest of the committee. It was going to be programmed to do the things that a mechanic could do, after all. Technically, a synthetic wasn't allowed to perform mechanic-level tasks, but he thought he might have found a loophole. There was nothing in writing saying a synthetic couldn't be an apprentice to a mechanic, so he was trying to design a humanoid synthetic. He had most of the framework done. He was just trying to put parts in place. He looked at the safe where the XRZ00 prototype was resting. It was a full-length, floor-to-ceiling safe with biometric locks on it. He had saved up for 2 years to buy it. Call it paranoia, but he wanted to be as safe as possible with his invention. As far as he knew, nothing like it had ever been attempted before. His thoughts drifted to the committee. He wondered what they would think of his project. Would they approve of him skirting the bounds of their rules for the sake of progress? If his synthetic was approved, it would mean government contracts for the XRZ models, design improvements, and possible mainstreaming. It would mean he could oversee a factory one day. He opened the safe by placing his thumb and eye on the relevant scanners, then punched in his 6-digit passcode. He turned the handle and pulled open the thick door. Inside stood the roughly humanoid skeleton of the XRZ00. It was about 3 feet tall and one day would bear faux skin, if he could afford it. He gently picked up the framework of his project, laying it on the table. He looked over it reverently. If he was right, this could revolutionize the mechanic industry. With one in every mechanic shop, the speed at which they could work on repairs would increase. He hoped productivity increases would get incentive enough to get more funding from the committee for the XRZ. It was mostly a skeletal mess of wires and metal, but to him it looked beautiful. To him, it looked like his legacy. He wanted to change how things were done. He wanted respect for synthetics and the things they were capable of. This project was his chance to show people that a synthetic was capable of doing all the things they were. Call him idealistic, but he wanted a better world for everyone, human-blooded and synthetic alike. A world where synthetics weren't owned but employed, where a synthetic would be free to pursue things that make them happy, where they had access to the same opportunities as he did. He wanted equality. He heard a rapid knocking on his door, snapping him out of his thoughts. Without putting up his project, he ran to the door to see who was there. As he opened the door, a PX-22 burst in, frantically whistling. Dryden's brain rushed to keep up with the crazed noises, but he was having trouble. He realized this was the same PX-22 he was working on yesterday. "Okay, slow down. You said you're running from someone? Who?" Several whistles and beeps, slower this time, conveyed the message a little more clearly. One of its coworkers was out to get it after it outperformed him, again. Apparently, this coworker was also responsible for the damage to the cargo amp. How far behind you was he? A short series of trills meant he was close behind. About that time, there was more knocking at the door. Dreiden turned to the PX-22. You go hide, I'll deal with this. It hurried off to find a suitable spot, and Dryden turned his attention to the door. He took a deep breath as the knocking returned. He hesitated before he reached for the door handle, hoping he hadn't put himself in a bad situation. With nothing else to do besides face it, he opened the door just enough to be seen. "How can I help you?" 3 gentlemen were standing outside his door, looking disgruntled and wearing dockhand clothes. He figured they worked with the PX-22, but he wasn't about to let them get close enough to it to do any more damage. Resisting the urge to look as he heard a sound behind him, he faced the men as they eyed him up and down. "You the owner of this shop?" said the one in front. "Yes, sir. Do you require a synthetic to be serviced? My shop is currently closed, but I can schedule something." He spoke fast and tried to sound welcoming. Maybe if he distracted them long enough, they would forget why they were here. "Let's see. I have appointments for the next 3 days, but I can give you a weekend booking for a small fee of 100 gold. Or we can schedule something next week." The men looked confused but quickly recovered. "Have you seen a PX-22 come this way? We think it's a wanted synthetic." "Oh, no, well, I've been in my shop working on my commissions this morning, so I can't say I have." He lied rather well, he thought. Hopefully, they thought so too. "Well, maybe we could come in and take a look around, just to make sure. In the interest of public safety and all that." Technically, it was within a citizen's right to check a public business for a possible fugitive, but Dreiden didn't care. This was his shop. "Sorry, I'm working with sensitive materials right now. I assure you, there isn't a working synthetic in here. Now, if there's nothing else, I have work to do. Good day." He went to shut the door. Suddenly, though, the lead man's foot was in the way. "Are you denying us entry to your shop while we hunt a wanted criminal? I can get the Peace Corps out here for a formal inquiry." Dryden cursed inwardly. He didn't need the damage to his reputation. He would just have to hope the PX-22 was able to find a hiding spot by now. "No need for that now. We all serve Micht in our own ways here. Come on in." As he turned, his eyes caught sight of the now closed safe. All he had to do now was keep attention off it. He spoke loudly to catch their attention. "As you can see, I keep a tidy shop. Would you like to see upstairs too? That's where I live." "We've heard about you. Word is you're sympathetic to the synths." Dryden was taken aback by the shift in tone. He felt uneasy now, and his calm demeanor slipped just slightly. "We know that synth came here yesterday. We know you're lying." Dryden tried for an easy smile. "Hey, friend, I think there's some sort of mistake. I just did some repairs, like I'm contracted to do. I didn't know it was a fugitive or anything." He didn't like where this was headed. It would be so easy to get out of this. All he had to do was tell them where it was. Maybe the PX-22 was lying. Honestly, though, he didn't think it was. "You can either tell us where it's hiding, or we can do our due diligence as law-abiding citizens," the man said with a cruel smile. The thinly veiled threat put Dryden on edge even more. He held up his hands in a placating motion. "Whoa now. Let's not do anything rash." He backed away as the 3 got closer. He tried thinking of a plausible reason to have them leave, but he was coming up empty. If they kept pushing, would he cave? He wasn't sure how far he was willing to go for the PX-22. Still, he had yet to hear a reason for this fugitive to be on the run. Dryden backed into a wall, stopping. He cursed again, wishing for a way out of this situation. His wish was apparently falling on deaf ears, as the leader approached him. "Those synthetics are gonna take our jobs, our homes, and our families if we let them. You gotta put the things in their place now and again. Apparently, they aren't the only ones." Dreiden wasn't prepared for the punch to the gut, and it knocked the wind out of him in a rush. As he doubled over, the second one caught him on the side of the head, knocking him to the ground. He was seeing stars in his vision, and he struggled to get up. He received a swift kick to his ribs as well. "If that PX-22 comes back, you give him this message for us, you hear?" Dreiden could only groan in response. As he lay there, face down, he wished they would leave him alone already. He heard footsteps, then his front door opened and closed. He slowly pushed himself back up, testing his battered body. He bit off a bit more than he could chew this time. He figured he had a broken rib or two at worst. All he needed to do was go see a doctor and get looked at now. He glanced at the safe and rubbed his neck. Walking over to it, he placed his thumb and eye to the scanners before punching in his code. As soon as the lock clicked, something pushed it open from the other side. The PX-22 climbed out of the safe, beeping quietly. "Yeah, they're gone, but not before working me over in your place." The PX-22 looked at him and made an alarmed sound. "No, I'll be all right. Just gotta go see the doc now." The PX-22 formally introduced itself as Gusty. It thanked Dreiden profusely for helping deal with the three men and apologized for the injuries. Gusty offered to pay for medical expenses as it received money. However, as a dock worker, it didn't make much. "I'll be fine," Dreiden assured Gusty. "You should probably hang out here for a bit before you leave. They could be waiting for you still." Dreiden grunted in pain as he moved the wrong way. He was going to be sore for several days. He wasn't a medical professional, but he was pretty sure he had a mild concussion along with the other injuries. He waited a while in silence with Gusty, occasionally wincing as he breathed in. The room was silent other than the sounds of his breathing and Gusty's internal components clicking. Dreiden felt alone with his thoughts. This was the first time he had ever been accosted for being sympathetic. He wasn't sure what to make of it. On the one hand, he was proud of himself for not caving and telling them where Gusty was. On the other hand, he was hurting badly. He wasn't sure getting involved was the best idea anymore. He wanted to help, but he didn't want to get beaten up for it. Maybe he should send Gusty home and tell it not to come back. Yet, the guilt he felt at that thought ate at him quickly. He couldn't bring himself to do that. He couldn't deny, though, that he didn't want to get wrapped up in this. Maybe he should be honest with Gusty. He opened his mouth to speak, only to have Gusty speak first. The solemn beeps and slow trills sounded sad to Dreiden. He frowned, shaking his head and saying, "Nonsense. You can come back here for repairs if you need them. I'm not too worried about them." He wasn't being completely honest about his feelings on the matter, but he wanted to be helpful. Gusty explained that it was trying to get a promotion at work for an increase in pay, but its coworkers were furious at it. All Gusty did was pull a few double shifts at the docks, but they felt like it was taking their jobs. Dreiden had heard the argument before, and he didn't really agree with it. Then again, he had job security because of synthetics, so maybe he had a bias. "Well, I'm glad you came here, even if I did get roughed up a bit. Just don't make it a habit, please," Dreiden said with a chuckle. Gusty nodded and held out a two-pronged hand, and Dreiden gave it a solid shake. Synthetics understood respect better than most people did. He watched as Gusty walked out of his shop and decided to lock the door behind it. Now he was going to return to working on the XRZ-00. He knew he should go to the doctor, but he wanted to do a few things first. He would go after. For now, he decided to focus on his project.